I really am overwhelmed by the lovely words and by this extremely meaningful award. Joe, your commitment to NYLAG is inspiring, and you are really the ideal board member. No matter what the need, NYLAG can count on you, and I thoroughly enjoy our working relationship. Marcia, how lucky we are to have found each other on that subway to the Brooklyn Bridge almost 30 years ago. And what a wonderful coincidence it turned out to be that in the 90s, when you decided to do some volunteer work for an organization that was helping women in need, particularly women facing difficult divorces, it turned out that you were volunteering for an organization on whose board I was sitting. And you soon joined the board, and our shared commitment to NYLAG has added a rich dimension to our friendship. Yisroel, your leadership since NYLAG's inception is a virtuoso performance. When we first met in the tiny two-room office suite in the Lincoln Building in 1993, I'm not sure I could have imagined what NYLAG has become tonight, but I suspect that maybe you could. You've been a visionary leader for our first 2 decades and hopefully for decades to come. And I'm deeply grateful to Governor Andrew Cuomo for his very kind words. Governor Cuomo has long been a friend of NYLAG. As Attorney General, he worked closely with us in the immigration area. When he shut down some unscrupulous practitioners, he asked NYLAG to come in and take over the representation of the clients of those operations, which we have done with positive results. With his outstanding speech at a NYLAG recognition event for volunteers several years ago, we got a glimpse of the kind of leadership we would see in him as a governor. And on a personal note, there is a special warmth between the governor and my family. Governor Cuomo, we're encouraged by your leadership and we're rooting for your success. My warm congratulations to Sharon Allen. I'm privileged to share this evening's honors with such a distinguished corporate leader who has done so much to advance the role of women. For me, the road to this evening and the Visionary of Justice Award began a long time ago. Like many of you in the room tonight, I went to law school because I wanted to make the world a better, more just place. This had been my goal from junior high when a class on the Bill of Rights captured my imagination, through high school years of debate and community service, and college study of government and political thought. I was privileged to attend Harvard Law School, where I studied with intellectual giants on the faculty, like Paul Freund and Larry Tribe and others. But in my second year of law school, I took a course called The Lawyering Process, taught by one of those giants, a dazzling, charismatic, and pioneering professor named Gary Bello. In Gary's course, I learned how to turn the sort of amorphous idealism I had felt before entering law school into a concrete way to make a difference. The lawyering process was a clinical course, a commonplace today, but at the time, fairly dramatic stuff. Laws had been passed in Massachusetts, where I was a student, and in a number of other states, allowing students to practice law on behalf of poor clients. And so I found myself with my first client, an elderly African-American woman who had a problem with her landlord. We'll call her Miss Jones. Miss Jones had difficulty getting around, and so I made a house call. She lived in Roxbury, in a one-room walk-up apartment with the entrance through the fire stairs on the back of the house. In the center of the one room was a somewhat rickety table and 2 chairs. We sat there and talked for a long time. She told me about the housing issue that was the reason she had sought a lawyer, and I said I thought I could help with that. As we talked about her circumstances, I told her I thought I could ease her life by helping her to get food stamps and other government benefits to which she seemed to me to be clearly entitled. Then she brought out a box. The box contained her most valuable possessions. One by one, she showed me the trinkets and documents and family heirlooms that were precious to her. She wanted these treasures to go only to her beloved nephew when she died. I said I could help her draft a will and make sure her wishes would be fulfilled. Realizing all that it meant to be Miss Jones's lawyer was humbling, daunting, and exhilarating. When I graduated from law school, I needed to find a job for a year in Boston while my new husband, Howard, finished the last year of his Harvard JD MBA. My inspirational professor, Gary Bello, had a grant to study why it was that smart law school graduates were becoming less than spectacular lawyers in so many legal aid offices. And he hired me to work with him for the year. It was a heady year. Gary, Jean Sharon, who was his colleague and eventual wife, and I traveled around to legal aid offices in various locations in the eastern United States, and we analyzed what was happening by digging into mountains of case files and studying office practices. Gary also maintained an active docket of pro bono cases, and I worked on most of those, including representing Puerto Rican migrant apple pickers. This led to some deliciously ironic moments, such as when Howard, scion of a great real estate family, came to pick me up at a union organizing meeting and had to wait at the back of the hall while Gary led the assembled groups in singing rousing songs urging the demise of all landlords. At the end of the year, Howard and I considered staying in Boston. Gary offered to make me assistant dean for clinical programs at Harvard Law School, and Howard had a fine offer from a consulting firm. But in the end, however, we decided to come to New York. My life and career took me in different directions, to city government work, teaching in law school administration, and starting a family. But then in 1993, an opportunity arose to reconnect with legal services to the poor. I was asked to join the board of the New York Legal Assistance Group. NYLAG was the creation of our founding chairman, Kathy Greenberg, and Yisrael Shulman, our spectacular president. As I became deeply committed to NYLAG, I was sure that Gary Bello would have greatly approved, because NYLAG has all of the important characteristics that Gary and I had found lacking in the legal aid offices that we had studied. NYLAG is nimble, it's not bureaucratic. NYLAG serves the needy without tying itself to restrictive definitions or cutoffs. NYLAG engages in impact litigation, policy advocacy, and community education to complement our work on individual cases. NYLAG engages in continual staff training, protects the morale of its staff, and encourages staff to be creative. NYLAG leverages the efforts of our paid staff with large numbers of volunteers, volunteer lawyers, pro bono partners, paralegals, case handlers, and law students. NYLAG lawyers do what an eager law student did for Miss Jones. They represent the whole client, and they make house calls. I was very pleased to be able to play a part in the urgent work that NYLAG does. You know, it's sometimes difficult for those of us with comfortable lives to fully comprehend the profound role a lawyer can play in a poor person's life. We don't face hunger. We are not trapped with a violent, abusive spouse. We are not facing deportation. We are not fearing foreclosure. We're not living in substandard conditions which harm our health. But thousands and thousands of our neighbors in this city face these crises and more. NYLAG exists for them. After some years on the board, Kathy asked me to succeed her as chair. She told me I wouldn't have to do any fundraising, and I was naive enough to believe her. But I've had the honor to chair our outstanding board since the year 2000. With tremendous hard work by everyone involved with NYLAG and generous support from far-sighted donors, everything about NYLAG, our staff, our volunteers, our pro bono partnerships, our clients, our clinics, our areas of practice, our intake sites, our impact cases, our advocacy, our outreach, our community education, our office, our budget, our board, our impact, and our reputation have all grown exponentially. The constants have been our mission, our commitment, our excellence, and our record of success. And we can add to the list of NYLAG's accomplishments this first ever gala. It's the product of great enthusiasm and commitment from our board, particularly our co-chairs, Joe Palazzotto and my dear friend Marcia Rickless. Merritt Birnbaum, NYLAG's development director, only joined us on November 1st, and she has somehow managed to create this evening without an outside event planner and while also doing the daily vital work of relating to donors and engaging new ones. Merritt, I'm not sure where you are, but Merritt, you are a marvel and a pleasure to work with. Yisroel Shulman, the very definition of the essential man. In his own modest way, he is a superb leader. And now he has led us into the world of galas, from which there's undoubtedly no turning back. I am overwhelmed to receive this award with so many people I hold dear here this evening to share in this moment with me. Tables and tables of family and friends and colleagues. Don't worry, I'm not going to mention everyone by name, but I do think it fitting to make special mention of two very important people in the world of legal service, both of whom I'm fortunate to call my friends. Lainey Barnett, spent most of her career as a leader of the Legal Aid Society, one of NYLAG's sister providers of legal services in New York. She was then appointed president of the Federal Legal Services Corporation and served ably for 6 years, and has just recently shared the task force to expand access to civil legal services established by Chief Judge Jonathan Lippman. That task force report is a powerful testament to the urgent need for more public funding for civil legal services for the poor. Martha Minow, the superb dean of Harvard Law School, is currently vice chairman of the board of the Legal Services Corporation. During her deanship at Harvard Now, clinical opportunities have become a centerpiece in the law school experience for most of the students. Martha is a world-class scholar, the author of numerous books, one of which she co-authored with my late mentor, Gary Bello. Of course, I must mention the two most important people in my life. My fantastic son, Michael, who was a summer intern at NYLAG, and my extraordinarily wonderful and wonderfully supportive husband, Howard. Howard and I are true partners in life. Everything we do is sweeter and more meaningful as we share it with one another. I am humbled and moved by this award and recognition, and I'm extremely grateful to all of you for your presence and your great generosity. All of you are making the world a better, more just place by supporting the work of NYLAG. Thank you.